7 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. So first thing on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes of 8/24/23. Anybody have any edits, updates, modifications?
Yeah,
See head shakes left to right.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Joe. All right, since I don't hear any needs for any edits or modifications, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of 8/24/23?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
I don't see Melinda yet, so Smith
Yes.
and Pasamato.
Yes. All right, 7 p.m. We have a stormwater management permit. 0 Marlborough Road. In accordance with the provisions of the Southfield Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaws, Southfield General Laws, Chapter 154. The Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a stormwater management permit for a project located at 0 Marlborough Road, maps 53 and 54, lots 9 and 8. The project description is the redevelopment of an existing parking area of St. Mark's School to coincide with the new roadway layout and town improvements of St. Mark's Street. Oh, I don't know my video. There we go.
I believe Anthony Cleves from Haley Ward is here. Anthony, if you want to start.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Cleese with Haley Ward, one of the members of the design team for the project, here on behalf of St. Mark's School. As was mentioned, we're here for the redevelopment of an existing parking lot. Let's see, should I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yep, you're good to go.
Can everyone see that? Should have a
Yep.
rendered plan. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with the area, it's the intersection of St. Mark's Street and Marlborough Road, across from one of the entrances to the St. Mark's School campus. There was a gravel parking lot that existed there, and the town is in the process of actually the construction of the realignment of St. Mark's Street to have more of a right angle connection to Marlborough Road. As part of that, some land transfers occurred between St. Mark's School and the town of Southborough. That has all taken place, and as you all, if you've been through the area, can see that the St. Mark's Street is well underway. The reconstruction of that is well underway. That gravel parking lot, portion of it's gone. Another portion of it is, I believe, last I was there, was being used as a construction staging area for the project that's going on now. So as you see here, what we've proposed is a new parking area tying into the new St. Mark's Street, as it was somewhat laid out as part of the design plans that were done for the town of Southborough. So we're maintaining the curb cut that was proposed as part of those plans. So we're being consistent with actually is being constructed today. Providing the parking lot with some pedestrian access areas to the top of page, connecting into the new sidewalks that are going in currently on Marlborough Road, which then ties into the existing crosswalk to the St. Mark's campus. As part of this project, we'll be adding some landscaping, some new trees shown along the parking area. Going to preserve an existing tree that's there. There are no trees being taken down as part of this project. Also proposing some landscaping and a landscape berm along Marlborough Road as well. The project ends up resulting in about a little over a 900 square foot reduction in impervious surface compared to what was there previously. For the stormwater, the approach that was taken is looking at more of like a low impact development where the parking lot will sheet flow across the width of the parking area along to a stone filter edge and then into a grassed swale. Just zoom in there. So come across the parking lot to a stone filter strip, to a grass swale, and then that would then divert into a deep sump hooded catch basin, and then that would connect into an existing catch basin that's been installed as part of the town's project, as they have improved the stormwater system of Marlborough Road and St. Mark Street as part of this project. I'm going to flip over to not as pretty color, but this is the erosion control plan that was submitted as part of the project. The natures of the slopes that exist out there today and that will be created are somewhat flat. So we're proposing to minimize some of the disturbance. This dashed thick black line is the erosion control barrier, which in this case is just be straw, the silt sock, 9-inch silt sock going around the perimeter of the project area. Construction entrance connecting into St. Mark Street, where the access into the parking lot would be. And then also proposing silt sacks in any catch basin that may receive any kinds of stormwater. The new one, once it goes in it, and the existing ones that are now installed in St. Mark Street. For a stockpile area, we expect a good spot for the stockpile area to be where will eventually be the landscape berm, kind of out of the way of the major construction components of the parking lot, but in this area here between Marlborough Road and St. Mark's Street. So it's a brief overview for you. If you have any questions, be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board members?
Yeah, I just have a quick question regarding the drainage. So you said a stone filter strip along the eastern edge of the parking lot, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, no, just the symbology in the plan sort of looks like a curb, but okay, I see. Okay, just to provide with an opportunity for some infiltration.
Infiltration and some treatment as well, some pre-treatment, before it gets to the grass swale. The grass swale is somewhat gentle. Sloping in there is, I think, right around 2% across that grass swale. So we'll get some more treatment and infiltration through that as well.
Okay, and then the manhole at the southeastern corner of the grassed area, not the catch basin, so that's connecting into the other drainage works that have been installed in the area, is that correct?
Correct. So this actually, it was installed currently as a catch basin. I think when the design plans were done for the town, the designers took a look at this area on how a parking area would be created, larger than what St. Mark's is looking to do here. And so they had a catch basin in here to kind of catch some of the stormwater runoff. We've done a little different approach, a little more low impact, less impervious surface, but that structure is in. So we were going to use that as a connection point and just convert that off to a drain manhole. But that is currently installed, and that is hard piped to new stormwater infrastructure that has gone into Marlborough Road. There's a couple of manholes now at the end of St. Mark's Street, the new St. Mark's Street.
I think you answered my question. So it's being converted to a manhole. So it's not going to be a flow through catch basin situation. It's going to be okay.
Correct. Yeah, it's not going to intercept any water. And let me zoom in here to the grading plan a little more. There's a swale line that's going to be created here. That's this dashed white line. It's going to go right by that structure and into our new catch basin. So that's correct.
Yeah. No, the first sheet that you showed a catch basin symbol on it. I now understand why that was, because that's what it is currently.
Correct. Yeah.
So okay. No, I was just making sure.
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Where will the snow be stored? in this?
So snow storage would be mostly along this, the left-hand edge in this section here, and then at the ends, at the end of the rows in here, probably a little bit at the entrances. in
Out of
there.
that soil and.
Yeah, so yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because of it's the low impact development, no curb line. We don't want to have large piles of snow in here inhibiting the flow of water out to that area. That, yep, good point. That's what the intent would be, up along these higher edges along the left-hand side.
Will there be signage to that effect anywhere?
Nope, I think there hadn't been any signage proposed. It would just be ongoing operations with coordination with the St. Mark's facilities and understanding of that.
And one other question, that manhole, when it gets converted from a catch basin, will that still require maintenance? And is that the town's responsibility or is that St. Mark's or?
It's actually on St. Mark's property. So essentially, I think it will end up being probably St. Mark's responsibility, although it was installed as part of the town project. But it being on St. Mark's property, it'll probably end up being St. Mark's responsibility if there was any long-term issues with that.
Okay.
And just as a background,
Any other questions?
sorry, Mark. We did opt
Okay.
to this to Fuss O'Neill. The applicant has provided a peer review check. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the comments for this meeting, but Fuss O'Neill has verified that they will have them prior to the 10-5 meeting, which is our next scheduled meeting.
So we'll be continuing.
There's one last point I'd just like to bring up. When we've had other projects with areas that would be sensitive to snow storage, we have in the past asked for signage to make sure that that message continues to be transmitted through the years.
Yeah, we have one member who's no longer with us who would be very passionate about that.
Yeah.
They push it where they can push it. Okay, anybody in the public have any comments or want to make any comments or ask any questions? Raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
Don't see any?
Okay, not seeing any. All right, given the fact that we've asked Fuss and O'Neill for their commentary on this, we're going to continue this next hearing. Is on 10-5.
Correct.
Do we hear a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Wheeler,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Altamato.
Yes.
All right, Anthony, as soon as I get those comments, I will forward them off to you. But they verified they'd be before the next hearing.
Okay, great. And then just so everyone's aware, we did have to file with the planning board as well. And we do have our first hearing with them on Monday night. So, okay. Well, thank you all very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Have
Have a good
night.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 7:10. Notice of intent, 0 Breakneck Hill Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Master General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw, Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7:10 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 0 Breakneck Hill Road, map 28, lot 28A. For the applicant, the town of Southborough. The project description is the cleanup of superficial solid waste and debris following the protocol specified in the cleanup plan approved by the Southborough Conservation Commission.
So we have members from TRC here to go over this project. I think a lot of us are familiar with it, so I will let Jonathan take it away.
Good evening, Jonathan Schuster with TRC. We also have Isabel Mamadi Hall on as well, in case she was very involved in the filing of this too. So I believe many of you, as Melissa said, are familiar with the site that has a storied history. We're talking about the site between Breakneck Hill Road and Woodland Road on an 87-acre town-owned lot, specifically a 1.26 acre area on that site has the contamination in question. We did receive a DEP file number that's 290-1110. And there were no technical comments posted. So as stated, the goal here to remove buried and superficial solid waste. Some of the history on the site, as you may know, prior to it being acquired by the town, there was the Davco farm where some dumping occurred. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And actually, just for reference, here's are we seeing my shared screen?
Not yet. There it is.
Okay. So yeah, just, you know, a lot of miscellaneous debris tucked into vegetation. Here's a photo from some point in the growing season. And I'll just be referring to this figure a bit here. So we do have an administrative consent order between the town and DEP that we're operating under and complying with. Here in the northern portion of what you see, the white outline is the approximate area of contamination and deposition. Prior to this filing, there was a filing that went in front of your commission and was approved to do soil testing. There were 19 test locations throughout this area, and at 11 of those 19 locations, there was significant solid waste up to a depth of 7 feet below the ground surface. I'll note that the contamination does continue off-site to the west onto a residential property. We're just talking about remediation here on the town-owned portion only. We are filing partially as a limited project, as this does involve mitigation and remediation. In terms of resource areas on site, there was a delineation completed by Lucas Environmental. So we do have delineated bordering vegetated wetland as well as bank. Other resource areas on the site would include land underwater, and we're also within an outstanding resource water, or ORW, across the site. Let's see if I can actually, here we go. So just zooming in a little bit, the proposed project, there was a detailed 126-page cleanup plan that was included. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but essentially the goal here to segregate and stockpile waste to identify where to dispose and recycle that waste and take it off site, as well as protect the adjacent resource areas. So we do have erosion control shown here. And keep in mind, some of the work is within BVW and does impact bank. So the erosion control has been adjusted to protect the adjacent additional resource areas outside of the limit of work. We outlined this in the filing, but we have approximately 379 feet of impact to bank, approximately 2,278 square feet of work within BVW that you see here. And generally, the rest of this work is all within buffer zone, about 59,000 square feet, of which about 6,500 or so is within the town's 20-foot no disturb zone. We're classifying this as permanent impact, despite it being remediation, only because this project won't necessarily restore the existing grades. And I say that with an asterisk because clearly the area has been heavily manipulated. There's tons of deposition of all sorts of materials. So it's not exactly restoring it to some pristine condition that it was before. It will be removed, and then there'll be a restoration plan to help renaturalize the site. In terms of the temporary impacts that we've identified, there will be an access road of crushed stone, approximately 9 feet wide, coming from the south of the site here, as well as this contractor parking and temporary workspace over here. We'll note that the construction pad will have crushed stone beneath which will be landscape fabric. And again, all areas will be renaturalized following work. There will be a chain link fence installed just for site security. There may be some potential additional clearing, again, associated, I believe, down here with additional contractor parking. We do intend to address this with a restoration plan. And I'd imagine that the commission would condition that with the approval of this scope here. We intend to work with the town on that restoration plan and the contractors involved to ensure that, you know, this is a net benefit to the resource areas and the adjacent buffer zone, surely removing that waste, and we want to make sure that it renaturalizes properly. If hazardous materials are encountered during the work will temporarily cease, and that will be assessed and handled appropriately in communication with the town. Machinery will be washed typically as it exits the site to prevent spread of invasive species, which there are quite a few around the site. And our narrative outlines some other project details, but just given the commission's familiarity with this project, I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from anybody?
I've got just a couple of quick ones. The material that's being removed, I know it's the goal, of course, is to remove material, and ideally, you know, chemical type contamination won't be found. We'll be able to screen it, replace soil materials back, and take the screened materials out. Presumably, there's some kind of sorting of those materials, perhaps into, you know, metals and non-metals or whatever for recycling purposes. But it strikes me there's going to be some sort of area needed to perform some of these operations. Is there a stockpile storage area, or do you not foresee the need for an area like this?
Yes, so I believe down here, so here's the contractor parking area, and there is a construction pad called out. So when we have a construction entrance, I believe that work is taking place, you know, in the site. I mean, if I were kind of, you know, the contractor, you know, doing this, I'd kind of, you know, move sequentially through the site. I think that's kind of a conversation, sort of a process thing in terms of construction sequence and when and where they're working, how they're stockpiling. But I agree with you. It makes sense that, you know, those materials would be sorted. There'd be an assessment of how the site would be backfilled, which we may not know because we're taking materials out. I think there's voids in there, just air pockets and a lot of random materials. So we'll kind of get a sense of what materials actually there as it's being extracted, stockpile and sort recyclables, trash, haul it off site, and then potentially, you know, after sifting, you know, the quote unquote clean soil, putting that back, you know, backfilling, maybe bringing in clean exogenous material to kind of help smooth things over as part of the restoration plan. But I imagine they would be using the identified construction pad that has the crushed stone just to kind of stage machinery and parking, and then kind of using this work envelope to do some of the staging itself, if that makes sense.
It does. I guess my only follow-on comment would be is that, you know, it strikes me that there is enough unknown about what could potentially be found in the actual work area, that if there's a chance that an extra area is going to be needed for materials processing or storage or staging and so forth, this is the time to get that taken care of, rather than have to, you know, try to rush together a meeting to get some sort of an amendment to you know, an already granted order of conditions.
Right.
So if you feel confident that they can do the work within that area, that's great. But if you feel there's a reasonable chance, you know, a 25% chance or whatever, that area won't suffice, I guess I would just say now would be the time. Presumably we'll be having a second hearing on this. We can mull it over in the interim for sure.
I can also
I do believe the eastern area here, so basically the limit of clearing is like this reddish color.
Yes.
So there is a pocket where presumably there, the contamination does not extend into that we are declaring in our clearing area. Sorry, I should have
Okay.
stated that from the get-go, but here in the eastern part, it's
Oh.
possible, we could
Okay.
get into this and kind of more space is needed. I think that was thought out by those that
Great.
developed the robust cleanup plan that I didn't, I could pull that up now. There's a lot of detail in there, like,
Great.
what do you do if there's asbestos abatement needed or lots of different things that could happen. So we've tried to plan for different contingencies, but at the end of the day, we want to get this permitted, we want to begin it, and then we want to cooperatively work with your commission, with the town as, new challenges are encountered and to comply with, what we've set out to do here in the agreement with DEP, between DEP and the town.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then this last is just a comment. As we work within BVW and of course the 20-foot no touch and so forth, for which we always require mitigation. In this case, that's a really easy, I think, judgment for me to make. The project itself is its own mitigation, which I think, from my perspective, simplifies things quite a bit. But yeah, that's all I've got.
And just to clarify more on the staging areas, Jonathan pointed out that area as well. I think the goal is, as we were creating the cleanup plan, is that the material, if we can screen it, the material that is to be recycled or removed, etc., is going to be placed mostly right into trucks to be hauled off. And if it's a strict dig and haul, aka we can't separate it, then it 100% is just going to the back of a dump truck to be hauled off. There's opportunity where maybe a truck is half full and it stays there overnight, and that's where that staging area comes into effect in that parking area. And we designated some of those extra parking areas in coordination with stewardship to both align with maybe some areas that we wanted cleared of invasives, so it's kind of doing double duty as well. And also kind of that area a little bit south of the dump outline is also within the limit of work. So there is some extra space if we do need to have an area that's bigger to stockpile. But the goal is to kind of sift in place and put in a truck to be removed off site. And then I think Jonathan also mentioned that construction entrance is going to have that geotextile fabric underneath it. So there'll be less impact to those trails, so that when we are completed with the project, we don't have to regrade the road essentially, because that fabric underneath will just be able to pull up the riprap and then pull up the fabric. And there'll still be some bumps and impacts, but the overall finality will be much smoother than some other, I guess, ways that we could have done it.
Thought that was a great explanation. One of the questions I had is, what is the projected amount of time that will be to do this work? And it could be that it would vary depending on what you find there. Just a sense of it.
I think in CPM, please, for anyone from TRC, if you think otherwise, I believe the goal was a couple weeks, whether it's 2 to 4 or, even less. If it turns into a strict dig and haul, that kind of maybe might go a little bit quicker. But it does also depend on what we find. We have to pay more special attention when it's asbestos containing materials and making sure that those are taken care of appropriately. But in the couple week range, whether it's 2 weeks to 4 weeks would probably be the worst case scenario. But that is our goal for the bid that we're going to be putting out soon.
Thank you.
One other thing I'll add. So, we talked about, we have this, very robust cleanup plan, but part of that is saying that there will be, a restoration plan. And in addition to that restoration plan, an excavated materials management plan as well. So there's we're trying to put these safeguards in place, but we kind of, the work will commence, but we'll have the safeguards in place to have, basically the contractor working with us, working with the town to develop that plan.
And certain members from DEP will also be on site during some of this work, especially for asbestos, but someone from the solid waste division will also be most likely on site the majority of the time too, just to keep eyes on it.
Is the restoration plan something that needs to be developed after they start seeing what's in there, or is that something that can be done before construction begins?
It will be after, because it really depends on the volume and amount of things that are removed. And that basis how much, if any, we need to bring back in terms of soil to bring up to any appropriate grades. But I did, have a proposed condition, at least, if the restoration comes the following year, then some sort of native cover crop that's approved by stewardship would be intermediary.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? No?
And your invasive species plan in the narrative, you missed Tree of Heaven. There's pretty healthy stand in there. So if you can take all those out, that's great too.
Yeah, and that's something that we have in the bid too, for kind of invasive cognizance and working with stewardship.
And I'd imagine, assuming the limit of, what is cleared, the depth to which it is cleared, having kind of that context of actually getting in there to develop, okay, this is what we need to bring back in, as Melissa said, what seeding, what clean material, what plantings, if any. So that'll be a robust conversation for sure.
Okay, does anybody from the public that would like to make a comment or have any questions, please raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
Not seeing any hands.
Not seeing any, okay. Ben, you mentioned continuing this.
You know what? I don't know why I had that in my mind that we already have all the comments from our consultants. So pardon me, that was hearing before. My apologies.
So I think we're okay to close this. Anybody disagree? Okay. Do I hear a motion to close this hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Gulick,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Masmata.
Yes.
All right, we can come back to this at the end for the issuance.
We can.
Great. Thank you all. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, next up is request for determination of applicability, 87 Southfield Road. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a request for determination of applicability for a project located at 87 Southfield Road, map 04, lot 41 for the applicant and owner MBTA. The project description is necessary maintenance and accessibility improvements at the existing parking lot at the Southborough Station.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Fontaine with MBTA Environmental, and I'm also here with our consultant, BSC Group, as a presentation for everyone on the project.
Hi, thank you. This is Diana Walden from BSC Group. And Melissa, I don't know if you could also add Catherine Egan as a panelist. She's our project engineer and project manager on.
She should be loading in. I think.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Yes, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. Let me get the PowerPoint. And I always have trouble changing to the slideshow version because then it starts to switch over to different screens. So I'm just going to stay here if that's okay and if everybody can see it. I'll try to shrink this down a bit so that we can see the slides a bit more. So as Jeremy mentioned, this is the Southborough MBTA station, and this view here is showing the entrance from River Street. And this piece here that you can see is the lower lot or the smaller lot. It leads to a larger parking area and the station platform. And so I'll just switch here just to give you the locus in context to the town and also the National Flood Hazard Layer, the FEMA floodplain map. So it is right near the municipal lines of Southborough, Ashland, and Hopkinton. And we provided this resource area map just to show the general location of various jurisdictional areas out on the project site. This is that lower, a smaller lot that I mentioned that we saw in the first view. And so BSC wetland scientists delineated a larger wetland system here. It does approach right to the edge of the road and up near the entrance to the lot. And so we have this bordering vegetated wetland associated with the Sudbury River. And so we also grabbed some delineated points of the Mean high water so that we could extrapolate the 200-foot riverfront area off of the Sudbury River to show how that impacts the site. And then the final resource that we have is bordering land subject to flooding from the 1% annual chance floodplain or flood zone A. And so that extends up and down River Street from the Sudbury River crossing and into these wetland systems. And basically this is some existing conditions photos of the lot. What prompted this is State Representative Kate Donahue received a constituent complaint or comment on the fact that some of the sidewalks and accessible areas were in disrepair and made it difficult for people with either walkers, wheelchairs, or other accessible issues to reach the various areas of the site. So this is just a small suite of improvements to accessibility. Basically, they are doing some sidewalk repairs. They are proposing a small concrete landing pad here by this existing electrical building. And they also have a stone dust or gravel path that kind of parallels River Street. And they're proposing an asphalt surface on that, a 5-foot wide path. And then this slide shows some of the existing wetland conditions out there. This is the BVW, which approaches River Street as well as the entrance to the lot. These are some more internal looks to that system. And then this is the Sudbury River crossing under River Street.
Is that a hubcap?
Oh, yes, it does. It looks like it's a hubcap there. I always say that tires are obligate species to wetlands. It seems that they find their way into wetlands pretty often. This is the permit plan, just to show you some of the upgrades and improvements proposed here. And so as mentioned, these are some of the repairs and repaving of the sidewalk and some curb line improvements and changes. This is that electrical building with the small concrete pad being added and some restriping and signage changes. And then this is that gravel stone path that will be now an asphalt surface if approved. And so this just basically summarizes those changes. I can go back to this slide while I go to the notes. And so the concrete pad includes 86 square feet in the 100-foot buffer zone. And of that 86 square feet, 57 is in riverfront area. And then of that, 24 square feet is in the bordering land subject to flooding. So this pink line here is the FEMA flood zone A. And this pink line across here is the 200 riverfront area up from the Sudbury River. And then this red line is the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland. And so then the other increase of impervious or the other change in jurisdictional areas is about 120 square feet of that gravel path changing to asphalt. And that would be both in the 100-foot buffer zone and mostly in BLSF as well. But that would be at grade without changing the capacity and flood storage capacity of the resource. And that's generally the proposal, and MBTA is looking for a negative determination of applicability. There's several, these don't quite fit to the minor exempt activities. There is a minor activity for work in roadways to maintain roadways and buffer zones, but it doesn't necessarily specifically extend to parking areas. There is a grandfather exemption for parking lot maintenance in riverfront area, but we do have some small changes. And then for BLSF, there really are no minor activities or exempt activities, but in this case, we would submit that we really aren't altering or filling that resource, in this case being over already developed pavement and or developed areas, and not filling above grade in those cases. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Can you go back to the slide? We have the stone dust path.
Sure.
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
So, you're proposing to remove that and pave that. But I see in the foreground, there's a sidewalk that makes kind of an L and goes underneath the dumpster.
Let's see if I can go back here. So yes, so it would be,
So why are we proposing to provide a shortcut?
I don't know if Catherine is able
Yeah.
to speak. Yep, okay.
Sure. So, basically, once the T received the complaint from the constituent, system-wide accessibility, the group within the MBTA went out to the site, and essentially, since they're seeing that people are using that more direct route as the accessible path, they would like to formalize it as being actually accessible. But you're correct. There is technically a route going to those stairs already.
Okay, so what the shortcut could be eliminated, for example.
It
Right?
could
I mean,
be, yeah.
right? For ADA compliance, the sidewalk and the L would be just fine. It's a few more steps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what is the concrete pad for that the 87 square foot pad? Why is that being installed?
So there's no accessible path to that doorway of the electrical building. So to be ADA compliant, you need to have, a level landing at that doorway opening and a connection to the sidewalk.
And what do you do about the curb for them to get to it?
So yeah, if we look back here, so this is a curb ramp right here. So
There is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep. So people can come across this way, and then once they're on there, they could. There's a small little ramp here, and then here's your level landing.
Okay.
Yep.
I think those are my questions. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I guess this may be outside of our purview here. I'm surprised that ADA accessibility is required for a utility space like that. It doesn't seem to be a publicly accessible area. It seems like it's some sort of utility vault, but that is the case. It must meet ADA accessibility standards.
Correct. Yeah. Because it's like a facility that could, be accessed by anyone.
Okay.
With a disability. Yeah, it does need to be compliant.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? No. Okay. See, Melissa, what's the current status of this? Lucas is reviewing.
Yeah, I'll let Joe. I talked with Chris this morning for a little bit. I know they're just a little bit backlogged. So I don't know if Joe had any time to look at this application, so I'll let him take that one.
Yeah, hi, this is Joe. I have not had a chance to do a field and site inspection on the project yet, or reviewing the delineation. I have only done a preliminary review of the proposal, and nothing really jumped out. My primary questions were whether there was any bordering land subject to flooding being filled. I think that was addressed. So there apparently will be no loss in compensatory flood storage. And then my other question is, within the riverfront area, any of that work that's proposed within the riverfront area, is that all on existing impervious or develop the degraded area, or is there new impervious proposed within the riverfront?
So the only new impervious in the riverfront is that piece of the landing pad by the electrical building that is currently this, oops, let me try to zoom back out a bit.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So it's in this condition. It's kind of a gravelly, weedy, sandy area. So technically not impervious. I would say degraded in that there's not, really visible topsoil there. But it would be over, this piece would be over pervious, a pervious area of the riverfront.
Okay, yeah, I guess it would be kind of borderline as far as whether it would be considered degraded with the vegetation being present, although there may not be any topsoil there, but there doesn't have to be much. And how many square feet? I mean, that'd be for the commission to consider, if there's a minor amount of new impervious in the riverfront, if there's any mitigation needed for that.
Yeah, that would be
Sure, I'll
good.
tell you where my head's at.
Yep.
That path that they have, that's a shortcut,
Yep. Yeah, there you go.
that becomes grass.
Yeah, is that in the riverfront or is that outside the riverfront? The gravel path.
I think it's,
I think it's in a buffer zone, but outside the riverfront, I believe.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
just outside. Yep.
yeah, it is just outside. Yeah. I mean, I don't see the need for it. I mean, there's a few more steps than there's an L and it's already sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, they could grass that over and, then take the 87 square feet that's to the utility house there. And I mean, my mind, I think that's a fair trade.
Mhm.
I don't know if others agree or disagree, but
Yeah, those are the only things that I kind of had questions on doing a quick look over of the application.
you need more time.
I don't think so, unless the commission would like the delineations reviewed. I don't know that.
I don't think
fact,
they're asking for a confirmation of the wetlands line. Is that true?
That's correct. It's more of are the activities going to impact the resource areas?
I mean, any changes might have minor adjustments on square footage, but I would imagine that they're not going to be too significant.
Mark, I just
Okay.
had someone from the audience actually emailed me. Would there be a consideration of if they want the cut through path to eliminate that L, or is that L still necessary for that portion of the sidewalk?
Yeah, we're not proposing to touch any of this portion of the existing sidewalk. That would remain as well. I would say that cut through path is, as you mentioned, there is an accessible path there today. So I'd say that's less of our accessibility concern. It's really more this area where there's some tripping hazards and safety concerns. That is the primary objective here.
Any other opinions or comments from other members? No.
I think your idea for mitigation, Mark, is great. I think we end up with a situation of a decrease in impervious surface. It is slightly outside of the riverfront area, but I think it's perfectly valid mitigation.
I agree. I think that adding additional asphalt when you've already got viable accessible pathways they're contiguous, it's excessive, and it's a good strategy to add grass there instead.
All right. Is there anybody from the public that would like to make a comment or ask any questions? Raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
Not seeing any hands.
Not seeing anything. Okay. So from my perspective, and I'm just one, I would be okay with a negative determination with some provisos here. Being that gravel path shortcut be returned to a grassed area so that the sidewalk is utilized. Now, we can't control people from taking a shortcut after the grass is there. I understand that, right? they'll go where they want to go. But that seems like a reasonable mitigation for the 87 square foot concrete pad that you need to put or want to put for the access to the utility house.
So you would not say, versus maybe like paving this and restoring this, you're thinking keep this walk as it is and restore this to grass.
Yes.
Oh, and Jeremy would like to speak.
So if we did go the route of using that shortcut path as mitigation, building onto your point that people still may use it, if there was I'm just worried that if you had a condition that we had to meet for that mitigation, that people would still be walking on it, and how we'd be able to maintain that in the future.
I mean, you can't stop people from walking where they're going to walk. I mean, no matter where they are.
No, I completely get that, but if we're held to certain mitigation requirements to upkeep that or submit, a year, 2 years, 3, that's my only worry of how to.
Well, so this is a negative determination, right? It's not a order of conditions where you have to maintain that for some period of time.
Okay.
Right. So I would say you take out the stone, you loom it and seed it. It encourage people to use the sidewalk.
Okay.
As some mitigation effort here. People walk where they're going to walk. You can't stop them from doing that unless you fence it in. And I'm not asking you to do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mark, just one last quick comment.
Sure.
This is a very small project. It's likely that it's going to take place very quickly. On the off chance that it does span a few days, if we were to get rain in the interim.
It never rains here.
Yeah. I see there is a down gradient of the work. There is a single catch basin that would receive the flow that presumably discharges down to the Sudbury River. I wouldn't mind seeing a silt sack in there just during construction phase.
Yep, that's no
good point.
There is an on-call contractor, so this work would happen relatively quickly, but that would be no issue, including silt sacks.
Yeah.
Great.
Catherine was noting that there was one here and there was one here, so those two could have silt sacks.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think the one on the lower side, on the south side, is already maybe a little full because that area does flood when it rains. So that's something that I know I'm going to talk to we have a new DPW director as well, so looping him in on that one. Just as
Recover the hubcap too.
yeah.
Yeah, I went through that puddle last night and got sucked in pretty good. All right, so I'm thinking a negative determination with the provisions that we've talked about here.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
All right, Dan, I will
Okay, you're gonna have to excuse me. I have to put the dog out. He's barking. I will be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Melissa, you were mentioning you might email the.
Yes, I'll get it to you tomorrow morning.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Okay. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
I'm going to load video in while we are waiting. And would it make sense for me to at least read the legal ad so we can get that out of the way? Okay. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 5 Corderville Road, map 54, lot 23, for the applicant Tim Black. The project description is demolition of existing single-family home and construction of new single-family home with associated site work and utilities. It's timing, Mark. I read the legal ad.
Oh, thank you. He's going to bark to come back in, but I got a few minutes.
All right, Vito, take it away.
Okay, Vito Colonna, Cornerstone Engineering. So it continued from last meeting. We owed you some revised plans based on Lucas's review and also some information from the wetland consultant on potential mitigation for work within the buffer zone. So we updated the plans. I'll just get my screen going. Okay, there we go. As far as the revisions go, one of the items from the commission was about having groundwater recharge if there was any increase in impervious area. So we went back to the applicant and they actually weren't planning on having gutters on the house. So instead we just reduced the impervious area on site to match the existing conditions. I usually build in a little extra for if they want to do a patio or something like that. So we took out the extra that was in the calcs, and then they also reduced the size of the driveway up in this area. So then we have a very slight reduction of impervious area, so it's essentially the same, but there's a very slight reduction. And then for other planning revisions with the Lucas environmental letter, we moved the flag A7 in the back, the recommended distance, and that set is still just outside 100 feet with the septic system. I think we're 100.5 feet, so it still worked out without altering the septic. So we put the new flag and the old flag just for reference. We extended that wetland line just to the south, just to show that the buffer, well, we kind of had it tailing off, just to show that that buffer extends. It doesn't curve off to the side. We added the soil stockpiling areas right here and here. Added the chicken coop in there. They just wanted to verify whether it was on-site or off-site. So it basically coincides with the property line. It's over the line by inches. So it's essentially all on the butter's land. We added the tree line along the back, which is along the limit of work, and then added a few miscellaneous items like a bar scale and dimensions to wetland setbacks. And the owner worked with Ecotech to provide a mitigation plan for the work within the buffer zone. And what they came up with was a planting plan, essentially, where they would go along the limit of work with 36 shrubs, small trees. They're shadbush, hawthorn, and red cedar, and they'll get about 20 feet tall or so. And from what they told us, they selected those because of their habitat value. They're native, and then they'll provide like a fringe area between lawn and transition then into the wooded areas. And they also provided some guidelines for invasive removals while during construction. So there's quite a bit of invasives in here. And I think the review comment was just basically saying how to manage that during construction. So the plan by Ecotech essentially they're going to pull all the invasives, pull the roots. Any soil that's intended to be reused on site or reused on some other site has to be separated from those invasives. And then the plants themselves would be shipped off site and disposed of either at the landfill or they would be chipped and burned at some other facility. So they couldn't be shipped to another site just to spread the problem somewhere else. Let's see. I think that was all the revisions to the plan itself. And I guess I'll hand it back over. If there are any questions, you can take those.
I missed the chicken coop comments.
Oh, right down here.
So that's theirs, but off-site?
It's the neighbor's chicken coop.
Oh, it's the neighbor's chicken soup. Oh,
Yep.
I thought you said it was theirs, but it was the neighbor's land.
No, no, yeah, it's the neighbor's coop. They just wanted to make sure whose side it was on, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's just barely over the line, but you know, it's essentially on the property line. But it's the neighbors.
And where's the 100-foot?
It's right in through here.
So if that was the extent of the neighbor's property, the chicken coop is in it.
Yep.
All right.
I think it's older from what I can tell, but
Is it active?
I don't know. I didn't walk out there when I just kind of was up here, the septic. And I didn't ask the survey guys if they,
You didn't hear a rooster?
I didn't hear anything though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the chair, this is Joe. I did
Yeah, good, Joe.
see, I did see a chicken.
Oh,
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's another matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from commission members? Questions? No? Okay. Any comments from Lucas? Joe?
I think all our comments were adequately addressed. I have looked at their responses. They've adjusted the flag in the field and replaced some of the missing flags, which were in locations that, you know, there was a stub on the ground, I think, for one, and another stub that was unlabeled, but they looked to be in appropriate locations when I saw them out there. The mitigation plan, as far as the plantings, I think, is adequate, and the invasives management for the construction phase, I think, is appropriate. So I don't have any other issues or comments at this point.
All right. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the public? Raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
No hands.
No hands? Okay. I think the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. We can close this. Your motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Gulick,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hoffmana.
Yes.
All right. We will do this one at the end.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Vito. I should
Thank you,
have.
Vito. Okay, next up, is it, yep, 740, notice of intent, 10 Overlook Drive, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 4. Section 40 of the Southwood Wetlands Bylaw, Southwood Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7:40 p.m. via virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 10 Overlook Drive, map 66, lot 40, for the applicant NALA Realty Trust. The project description is to replace a failing septic system.
Hello, Karen Skinner-Catroni, representing the owner of 10 Overlook Drive. This is continued from the last meeting. I believe that the commission was just waiting for the Board of Health to approve it, and it has been approved by the Board of Health. Did you want me to go over the project again, or?
I'm just reading a couple of notes here. Melissa, is there anything else outstanding?
That was the one outstanding item from last time.
Okay. And they approved it as per the plan. Board of Health did.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the one where there's some concern about some drainage discharge between the two houses. Was that resolved? We had an abutter with some kind of concerns about that. It looked like a fairly easy solution, but
Yeah, it's my understanding that it kind of got resolved in the meeting. The owner was had thought that there was a this created a swale between the two properties, and the water would go down that swale. So he was, from what I got from the engineer, that's how the meeting
The
went.
clock is on the meeting if you like me, he raised his hand if you want me to allow him to speak.
What'd you say, Melissa?
The abutter Tom is on the meeting.
Oh, okay, okay. You were garbled. Yeah, let him in, please.
Tom, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. I didn't really catch what you said, Karen. The sub pump will go across the septic to the swale, as I understand it, because the proposal is put the swale between the two property lines. That means any discharge from the sub pump, including the gutters, front and back, will go across the septic. Is that how you designed it, or how is it engineered?
It's not my design. The engineer was here at the last meeting, and it was my understanding that you brought this up, but you were satisfied with the swale that went down towards the wetland?
Not satisfied. I think there was an outstanding question that Commission Member Smith said. I remember he was going to look into the sub pump and also the drain water, both from the downspouts, front of the house, back of the house, and also from the backyard heading that way. Just to make sure that all that additional runoff, where would it go? Would it go across the septic to the swale, and then from the swale to the street, and then the street to the catch basin to the reservoir?
So it's my understanding from talking to the engineer today that the runoff would go to that swale and then down towards the back of the property?
No. Water doesn't travel uphill.
Is it uphill?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
My recollection is how Tom has described it, that the grading looked like it would pitch things towards the road, which is fine. We just want to make sure that Mr. Marcoulier is not inadvertently being flooded here.
The engineer did bring it up and said that he would not be flooded, or the water would not impact him at all.
Well, I agree that it won't impact me, but but you're also saying that the water will never go to the back of the property. There's a hill there. It will always go to the street. It goes to the street now. When there's a lot of rain, it'll go uphill maybe a half a foot to the street. It will never go in the back. But if you're saying that's what his note says, I don't understand, I guess.
Okay, I see one grade of 99 at the street. That's the only grade that I see here. Oh no, 100. So it's, yeah. So that it's just 100 on the system is 100, and the grade at the street is 99. So that just that back portion is the front portion there is uphill.
It's uphill in both. I mean, I live by it. I know it very well.
I'm not saying that you don't. I apologize for making that impression.
I think from the last meeting, the engineer stated that the septic would only be mounted a foot. It would create a swale in the middle. The concern wasn't mostly that the water would go towards the wetland, but that the sump pump and the gutters were directed towards the street and where the septic is located. Of the existing house at 10 Overlook.
Yes, that's how I understand it, Melissa, too. It just said, Ms. Skinner, you were contradicting that.
I think we can condition that.
Okay.
That sump pump discharge and gutters shall be discharged such that drainage is conducted to the street, not onto the adjoining property.
That sounds acceptable.
The question that's in my mind now, listening to this, is the gutter runoff and the site runoff of, is it, 10 Overlook Drive? Is that sheet flowing across the septic field?
It will, yes.
And Board of Health is okay with that?
It's approved by Board of Health. It was approved.
Karen, do you know if you got the official approval from Dennis yet? I know Board of Health, he just got back yesterday, so he made the comment to me that he didn't have any further comments and the plan appeared fine. I just want to make sure you got the official approval.
So I spoke to the engineer today, and he said he got the official approval, and the engineer, and I'm sorry, the Board of Health agent was going to speak to you.
Okay, yep, and he did relay that to me that he had no comments.
Okay.
I am not a septic engineer. If that is perfectly acceptable for a lot of water to go across the septic, that is not my septic. And the swale, as you stated, is in between the two property lines. So by common sense, all water will go to the swale and then drain to the street, which hence it goes across the septic.
Yeah, well, water goes downhill for sure. There's no question about that. Ben, in your engineering background, running sheet flow across the septic field, septic is an ordeal. I understand that, but it's just, stormwater running, this water across the septic field. Common sense is not common, but to me, it breaks my common sense.
Yeah, I mean, every septic system that's on some kind of a slope will have some amount of sheet flow going over it. This one, honestly, looking at the plan, I've been looking at it here off the Dropbox, and because the system is mounded, honestly, it looks like there'll be somewhat of a swale between the system and the foundation of the house, in fact. And I would expect, a sump pump would discharge not far from the foundation unless they're going to be flopping a sump pump hose all the way across the system. And gutters, of course, would discharge, at the corners of the house. I think,
sure, yeah.
I think it's going to be conducted before reaching the septic system. And you can see down towards the soil stockpile area, you can see that a swale has been graded into that 100-foot contour. Do you see where I'm saying? Where we don't have the plan up. I'm sorry. I'm the only one looking at it. I forgot.
Hold up. Give me 1 second. Sorry, went in the wrong one.
Yep. So yeah, if you could, yep, right there, you can see the 100-foot contour line sweeps underneath the system, and then has you can see a swale is graded in where it connects into the
No, I think I might have the last one. I just wanted the right one.
Yep. So adjacent to the soil stockpile area, you can see there's a sort of a swale graded in with a proposed 100-foot contour connects into the existing 100-foot. I think stormwater flow is going to be contained by the system, flow adjacent to between the system and the foundation of the house, and continue down.
Yeah, it's not going to flow over it.
Yeah. So
yeah, I see it.
Does that make sense to you, Mr. Marcoulier? Do you see what I'm talking about?
I do. I do. I understand the septic will be a little bit of a mound.
Yeah.
Just to let you, again, today's present, again, I don't know the numbers. I can see the numbers and I can see what you guys can see.
Yeah.
But where all the water actually comes, so when we have like tomorrow, if you go down there, you'll see the street across the berm. If you go from like the 100-foot mark and go straight down, and that's the street. No, the 100 mark underneath the septic.
Yeah.
Go straight down to there is where the water actually comes onto the street. Today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the new 100. The old 100 is to the left of that.
Yeah, the lighter gray is
it doesn't matter. I'm just
that's
the
the
point
old
of reference. All the water comes right there, and the street is wet for a few days until eventually it seeps into the ground.
Yeah.
So it looks like this will then be copying the existing condition, not making it better, but not making it worse. And it also appears that it will not be shedding drainage onto your property, which was that was my concern from last meeting. I just wanted to make sure that it had been addressed.
I agree with that. Question though, for I think Ms. Skinner, there's a berm on this street. How do you accommodate a berm? With there's water behind it. When the water goes above the berm is where it comes onto the street, but once it's below the berm, it just stays wet there. It's just like slot. Did the engineer take into consider that that little berm acting like a little dam on the water coming to the street?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did.
Because
Again,
I can
think it's
see
designed
all the
this.
99s. All the 99s will be
Well-
continuously wet.
You can see the 99, then the 98, the 97 right at the street.
Yeah, I agree with that, but
See it?
historically,
Now it may have settled since you've lived there. It's
it's
lower.
still there today. It
know?
still backs up the water at that part of the property. I can go out there. When did it rain? 2 days ago. You go out there right now, your feet will be muddy and wet.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, if this is fine,
Yeah.
that's fine, and
Well-
it's not going to go onto my property, which I accept. I just want to add cautious that this poor homeowner could have problem with the septic. I don't know it's.
I mean,
not
I think what we can do is, like Ben said, we can condition to make sure that it doesn't make its way onto your property, and that those contours, the 199 and all the way out to Outlook Drive, that the water is making its way where it needs to go.
Okay, I agree. That's fine. Thank you.
Would you agree, Ben?
Yep, absolutely. I think it's,
Yeah.
I just wanted to just follow up on that, make sure it was taken care of. Thank you.
I mean, since they're going to rip it all up and put a septic system in, they can grade it so it works.
And it's something I can reiterate to the Board of Health inspector as well when they're out doing the septic.
Okay. All right. So given that, I think we can close this.
I'll make the motion.
Hey, do we hear a second?
Second,
Second.
All in favor?
Zulik,
Yes.
Harrington. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, Kevin. Farrington.
Yes.
Upton.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Hoffmotto.
Yes.
All right, Karen, I will get this to you and Eric tomorrow morning.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You as well. Okay, moving right along. I see notice of intent in SMP 250 Turnpike Road. In accordance with the provisions of the South Road Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, South Road General Bylaw, Chapter 154, Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the South Road Wetlands Bylaw, the South Road Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, September 14th, 2023 at 7:50 p.m. by a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent and stormwater management permit for a project located at 250 Turnpike Road, map 27, lots 2A and 46. The project description is the construction of a contractor's yard building, addition of driveway access, and maintenance of previously existing stormwater areas. Melissa, you threw me a loop here. You put stormwater first.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I see James and Brian are here, so feel free to take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. I'm Brian Charvel, the General Counsel of Ferris Development Group, and I'm here tonight as counsel for the applicant, FD 250 Turnpike LLC. My office is at 118 Turnpike Road, Suite 300 here in Southborough. And I'm joined by James Tatro, who you recognize from the prior two instances of this hearing. James is with Azimuth Land Design. His office is also in Southborough. I had a prepared recap I was going to give you guys, but admittedly, long story short, this is another one that we think has the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And so we would ask that you consider acting on it tonight. After the substantive presentation James gave on August 24th, he's been at it in terms of providing the things that you guys and your peer reviewers wanted that were raised at that meeting. He provided them to your staff last Thursday, and I know staff had shared them with Lucas and Fuss and O'Neill. And so I hope they've had a chance to review them and can weigh in. James, in the meantime, had provided updated plans, a revised application, the drainage report and calculations that you guys were looking for. And he had done kind of point-by-point response letters to both of the memos you had gotten from Lucas and Fuss and O'Neill. So we hope you have what you need in front of you to close this and act. We were obviously are mindful of freezing temperatures approaching and would love to start the work and get it done this fall. And we got crews mobilized, so we're ready to start soon. And with that said, I'll return it to you, and questions from me or James, we'd be happy to answer. Thanks.
To the chair, I'd like to just point out just quickly what changed, what was done in the plan for revisions in response to the input from the commission and from the reviewers. And if I could share my screen, I'll use that. Okay, so bear with me just a second.
Go right ahead. You have to excuse me a couple minutes. The dog has to come in. Be right back.
I can wait. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we got, as I said, we had the previous attendance at the commission's meeting and got the review letters from Lucas Environmental and Fuss and O'Neill, which both had several comments. A lot of comments were in relation to the engineer not correctly filling out the WPA Form 3. I apologize. We resubmitted the form, hopefully checking the correct boxes, etc. But I'll just go over the changes that were made, the more substantive changes made to the plan. The probably largest is that I'm circling the infiltration structure to the east of the proposed contractor's yard building. This was actually redesigned and made a little larger. I think I made a small error in one part of the calculations in the drainage report initially. So we made this larger. It's now covering 2,400 and change square feet, and would have 76 Cultec R902 chambers within it. And this basin this infiltration structure will take all of the flow from the 2-year storm with no piped outflow. You have to get larger than 2-year storm before you get a little bit of piped outflow to a lower 6-inch outlet here. And you got to get bigger than a 10-year storm to get any piped outflow from a higher outlet here. Another change that we made to the plan is that I had not shown the proposed water line connection to the proposed contractor's yard building. That was added here. You see where I'm trying to circle the cursor here in Parkerville Road, coming up to the site and into the building. There was another change or more of a clarification. I had said that we were going to use the existing septic system in place. Now, the existing septic system, I'm going to try and circle or run the cursor around the square that is that existing leaching area. It's this square here, part of which the one or maybe both of the reviewers said, this is kind of odd. You're showing an existing septic system and you're showing a building on top of it. And what I needed to clarify is that we're not going to use most of this existing septic system. This existing septic system leaching area was designed for the office use of the existing building and has a capacity of some 3,600 gallons per day. I added a calculation onto sheet D4 of the site plans that the self-storage use and the contractor's yard building use together total actually just a little under 400 gallons a day, really a fraction of the capacity of this system. And what I added an outline in red here is 1/4 of that system remaining of that leaching area, which would be utilized the existing primary system here and over a little to the east, reserve system area over here. 1/4 of that existing system being used for these two structures, the existing now self-storage building and the proposed contractor's yard building. The office use was just a massively higher flow generation. So that was one point I did not adequately call out in the design, and I apologize to the two reviewers for that. I also have a note here, 1/4 of the existing septic system leaching trenches will remain and be utilized, shown in red dashed outline. And that was also the product of several conversations with the Board of Health reviewer as to what we wanted to do there. In fact, we went up and dug in the area of the system to confirm actually the quality of the pipes there, because the Board of Health agent was curious, given the age of the system, was this a type of pipe that he couldn't really trust to be in decent condition at this point? And actually, it was some good PVC pipe which seems to be in excellent condition. So that was another point, which again, really more of a clarification. I'm going to jump to a different sheet here because one of the requests was, I think it was from Fuss and O'Neill, was that we should add a landscaping plan to the plan set. And this was the landscaping plan from Larry Green. And what it shows is that it actually is not showing the areas going away. There are a couple small landscaped islands existing, one here, I believe another here. There are a couple of them going away because they would be in the way of vehicles coming in and turning. But in compensation for that, actually more than compensation, we're going to create additional landscaped areas here to the west of the abutter Firebird, here to the west of the proposed contractor's yard building, and here to the east of the proposed contractor's yard building. And I think as the ad reads, again, we're proposing really overall three things. One is maintenance of detention basins. A second is a access, just paving a 9-foot wide access to the back of this building to the basement level, such that things can be moved in and out more easily. There's really just a soft dirt path to walk right now. And taking about a 70-foot wide stretch of the landscaping directly in front of the building and paving over this in order to have overhead door access to a couple of the units in the very front. So this access in the back and this paving to get overhead door access to a couple of units in the front together add impervious cover, which is area draining to Route 9. And as compensation, it's basically primarily this area over here by Firebird and this area. And the net result is that while we don't change in any other way the drainage system handling the flow going to Route 9, we're very, very slightly decreasing the impervious cover such that all the drainage to Route 9 works out. Fuss and O'Neill asked us to show what is happening. We had shown the peak flow rates to both Route 9 and Parkerville. Fuss and O'Neill said, show us you're supposed to show us what's happening volume-wise. And volume-wise, things barely change at all towards Route 9 because there's barely any change in the composition of the cover and how it's handled. But towards Parkerville, we're actually decreasing the volume of the runoff, varying from storm to storm slightly, about 20 to 25%. That's because, again, everything that's all the roof of this building and all of the parking area that drains to the new structure that's going to be in the low corner of the parking here is going to go through CDS stormwater filter unit and be infiltrated, and everything up to the 2-year storm is being infiltrated. There's no piped outflow. And so oops, wrong one. This is what I get for looking at things while you're talking on other. So we added this table here at the bottom of the sheet, looking at the volume of flow in acre feet to the design points. Again, barely changed, just thousandths different to flow to Turnpike Road, Route 9. But the flows to Parkerville Road will really pretty significantly change. 55 hundredths of an acre foot in pre-development 2-year storm down to 3/10. In the 100-year storm, 2.4 to just over 2.0. So there is some significant reduction towards Parkerville. So I'm going to go back to the plan. So I think those are the primary changes. That and we added a little more clarification in response to, I think, to Lucas's comment about asking for some more explanation of the detention basin maintenance. We're only proposing really to do handwork of tree cutting and handwork of silt removal. We're not proposing to bring a machine in there. And, you know, there may be, I think we're gonna have to look at the pipe here at the outlet of the more easterly basin, the one closer to Parkerville. And that pipe may have to be replaced. I don't know, I think there's some suspicion of it being blocked or crushed. But if that pipe does not need to be replaced, then there is no machine work going to happen in either basin. If it does need to be replaced, that would be done as quickly as possible. I know the part of the discussion at the previous meeting was in regard to the more westerly basin, south of the existing office now storage building, and that it had some characteristics of vernal pool. And obviously we would commit to not working in there anytime near the you know, the spawning time of these species, which I guess would be, you know, at least March through May. We'd ideally like to do the work right away, but during winter time would also work. But we would certainly be, you know, we would certainly accept a condition that said we could not work in any of several months through the sort of, I guess you'd say, the spawning period for the wood frogs. I just want to note that we sent along a request to allow work within 20 feet of wetlands at 2 points, and those are the outlets from this infiltration structure. This outlet is already a couple feet up from the bottom of the structure. This one is already near the top of it. And we looked at the only way to try to get these outlets 20 feet from the wetlands in question would be to, I don't know if it even would be physically possible, but to build up a very high wall along Parkerville Road and do a huge fill and have this infiltration structure have a much larger footprint, but be shallower, and we'd have to move the proposed water access, water connection up to the very limit of the frontage and probably dig right near the property line with Firebird. It would be an extremely difficult installation. So we did not take it lightly, working within 20 feet. And again, this 6-inch HDPE pipe here would only discharge in storms larger than the 2-year. This 10-inch HDPE pipe here would only discharge in storms larger than the 10-year. So they're not going to be, you know, frequently discharging there, and they are going to both discharge to riprap splash pads to reduce the erosive force when they do. So I guess I'll leave it at that. I'm sure there's other things I wanted to say, there always are, but I'll try and answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
All right, thank you. So these revisions that you've just walked through, they've been provided to our consultants, wetland and stormwater consultants. We have not yet got comments back from them. They're due back prior to our next meeting. We have Lucas here on the call tonight. I don't know, Joe, if you want to provide any early commentary or you want to wait till your formal comments.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to wait to my formal comments. I really haven't had a chance to look at this in any detail at all. Other than to say that it's
understandable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's understandable. So to that end, obviously, we're gonna have to continue to the next meeting, which is 10/5, so that we can get their comments back and we can you know, assess them, have you respond if responses are necessary.
And James, one thing that I did notice that Kevin brought up at the last meeting that I still don't see on the plan is the buffer zones for the detention basins as well in the plans.
Oh, okay.
In the 20-foot no touch.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay.
And the other thing is, are we going to need a waiver request for that page access drive in the back of the building? That's also in the 20-foot area, isn't it?
I guess my question to the commission would be, do we need a waiver request where it's already been altered, but because it is already yard and sort of dirt path to the backyard, we're really just changing that surface.
I would
Well,
add,
you're formalizing it though.
True, yes. Okay, I
I
will
mean-
add a request on that.
And with each when we grant a waiver for work within the 20-foot no touch, it's always accompanied by some form of mitigation.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would ask, would our providing infiltration where there is none and filtration of runoff where there is none from the lower parking area now, could we have those? Could those be considered mitigation?
I believe these are things that are already required under our Southborough Wetlands bylaw. The infiltration. One type of mitigation that's often used is invasives management. I'm guessing that there are plenty of opportunities for that on the parcel.
I would actually note one of the things I didn't say, I just jumped the screen to the landscaping plan, was that next to as part of that, toward that end, the landscape architect noted that within the existing 20-foot honey locust, remove the vines. There's a lot of invasives along the Fireberg boundary.
And I'm guessing adjacent to the wetlands, there would be further opportunity. I know the detention basins having been not maintained in some time, they're magnets for many types of invasives. That could be quantified and within the buffer zone in particular. And these are areas where invasives just tend to really take over. That's sort of the low hanging fruit, the obvious one to me, and you may find other potential mitigative measures.
Okay. Fair enough. I thank you for pointing that out.
Any other comments, questions from the commission? Looks like no. If there's anybody from the public that has any comments or questions, raise your hand and Melissa will let you in.
I see one hand, Eric Glazier. I'm gonna allow him to speak. Eric, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so Eric Glazer, 9 Skylar Drive. Question, and apologies if this is a little bit basic, but the East Basin, do I recall, did I read, is that, and I think you have your consultant on, is that considered to have attributes or characteristics of a vernal pool? Or is it clearly delineated as not, it's unambiguous that it is not a vernal pool?
Through the chair, I think it was stated at the last meeting that during the order of resource area delineation review, that the applicant's wetland scientist, Goddard Consulting, had actually brought up that there are some characteristics of a vernal pool at that basin.
Yeah, and actually, my question was probably more towards the Conservation Commission themselves. But I guess in light of that, how do you handle the concept that it could be a vernal pool in light of any restrictions associated with it being a vernal pool for the proposed development?
So I think we're talking about the West Basin.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Not
the
the
East Basin. I was trying to confirm, does the East Basin have any attributes or characteristics of a vernal pool?
That was not noted.
No.
So this is something that Joe and I have gone back to look at, and I'll let Joe pop in if he has any further comments. But when we reviewed some of our files, there was no final closeout on the Eastern Basin. It kind of got not necessarily dropped off, but there was kind of confirmation that there was a possibility that it did provide vernal pool habitat, and then the focus kind of went more on the western because there was more visible wood frogs. So I think it's something that might be further addressed by Lucas and for consideration of the commission as well.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the property as proposed is closest to the east basin, so that's why I asked the question, and whether it would require, I think to your point, to take a relook at it to confirm if there's any attributes or characteristics of a vernal pool that would be impacted by the contractor's shed. Thank you.
There is one more hand, John Palmer, so I will allow him to speak. John, you should be able to unmute.
So same kind of a question. John Palmer, 131 Parkerville Road. So in looking at all of the past and present, wetland survey reports, there's both catch basins present evidence of a vernal pool habitat. So my question is the same as Eric's question. So then doesn't that catch basin, that east catch basin, then present setback issues?
Well, Melissa, where do we leave that basin off at?
In terms of vernal pool habitat?
Yes.
So the last comment that we had submitted by Goddard was that there just wasn't much vernal pool habitat, but that indicates that there is some amount. So that's kind of where it was left on the eastern basin. There was more evidence on the western basin. So that's something to consider again in the eastern basin, is that may not be as prevalent as the western one, but the eastern did acknowledge that there was potential vernal pool habitat there.
And obviously neither one is certified.
Correct.
And we wanted to be sure to emphasize that neither certified, and we've had the engineers, especially Goddard, look at this for us. It's important, I think, for everybody to keep in mind, this is a designed, engineered, and built detention basin system that was neglected. And we bought the property not that long ago and want to get the system functioning like it was designed and built. That's what this NOI is about.
Yeah. So one issue with that, I don't mean to laugh, but one issue with that is when these detention basins are not maintained, over time they become a wetland that's under jurisdiction.
Yeah, and we know that from walking through it with Mr. Wurzel.
Sure. And this isn't the first site in town that has encountered this. We've got many. And when things become abandoned, they're not maintained, nature takes its course, and they become what they become.
And we're kind of here at the conflux of drainage issues from Eagle and drainage issues from the neglected detention basin off Sarsonstone. And so we're trying to get our part working so the whole area works better.
No, I get it. Again, when things are neglected, bad things happen, right? So.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
I'd be curious to hear Joe speak to one of Mr. Palmer's questions, which was regarding the effect of were the eastern detention basin found to be a vernal pool, the effect that would have on, he asked specifically, setbacks to a contractor's shed. I don't want to attempt to answer that myself in fear of getting it wrong, but I'd love to hear what Joe has to say.
Well, is the contractor shed proposed on existing parking lot, impervious?
It is.
So I would say it would not have, significant issues as far as habitat impact. You just have to be concerned about any potentially runoff issues that might come off into the pool.
All right, thank you.
And it has been our practice in the past, as I recall, that when vernal pools are located, we request that as a condition of approval that the applicants go through the process of certification. I recall we have done that on previous projects. The additional protections, and Joe, please correct me if I get this wrong, afforded to a vernal pool aren't, the buffer zone distances aren't extended hard and fast, 100 feet from a wetland. It's not that it's 200 feet from a vernal pool or something like that, but it affords additional protections to habitat areas surrounding the vernal pools that support the species that spend part of their life cycle in the vernal pool. Do I have that correct, Joe?
Correct. The buffer zones, the setbacks are generally provided to protect the upland habitat that is utilized by the species that require the vernal pools. So wood frogs, spotted salamanders will move, sometimes, hundreds of feet or great, even much more than that in some locations from the vernal pool during the non-breeding season. But they're going to be, utilizing, natural forested or wooded areas or wetland areas, and not a paved, parking lot as habitat. They may travel across a parking lot getting to and from a vernal pool, but it certainly wouldn't be considered an upland habitat.
So this higher level of review comes into play when non-modified areas, natural areas are proposed to be covered with, lawn or impervious or building or something like that.
Correct. Yeah. Typically that's the case. If if you have an existing parking lot, you really wouldn't generally consider that as upland habitat for any vernal pool species.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Does that address the question?
It does address my question. I have a follow-up question, which is you had mentioned that you had requested further certification of those vernal pools. Whose responsibility is that to seek that certification? And how does that happen?
What we've done in the past is on a property where we've issued an order of conditions. One of the conditions that we added was that the project proponent goes through the certification process for the vernal pool, and that's one of the conditions, and it's recorded against the deed of the property. And Melissa, frankly, is the one who follows these conditions and makes sure that they are followed. And if they're not, the commission would eventually have to get involved with some sort of enforcement order scenario.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that a part of the orders of conditions a year ago at this point when the last engineering review was done?
I don't believe so.
No,
that wasn't in order of conditions. That was an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, which was simply getting approval from the Conservation Commission on just physically where on the site resource areas are located. But it's not something that is conditioned in any way.
And John, on recent permits in which we've required certifiable vernal pools to be submitted to the state, we usually put a timeline on that. I think the most recent one was 6 months. It depends also on the season. We need to make sure we give them enough time to have another applicable vernal pool season. But if we were to put that on a condition for any project, if they were to fail to do that within the designated timeline, the commission would have enforcement actions for non-compliance with their permit. Sorry.
So I guess what I'm asking is, when does it move from there's a potential vernal pool habitat to, hey, we need to certify this as a vernal pool?
So I think that's going to come up in the next round of comments from Lucas Environmental. And if the commission finds that the reports, on either end, either from the applicant or from our consultant are deemed to have areas that can be certifiable vernal pools, then that would be when the determination of that would go into the special conditions of the permit.
Okay, I think I understand. So as part of this, as part of this review, right?
Yes, I think, yeah. I think we're on the same page. Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Review for this permit.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Let's see. Eric has raised his hand again, so I will allow him to speak.
Thank you. I just had one last question. I just want to make sure I was clear on this. So if the Eastern Basin has potential for attributes of a vernal pool, is the proposal then to go to do maintenance work on the basin to return its function? If that is indeed proposed, is there risk of actually affecting the habitat and the environment of the vernal pool itself, right? If you're trying to restore something that hasn't been restored and it's transitioned into a different form, i.e. vernal pool, is there a risk of affecting the vernal pool by actually doing the restoration work?
So I think what you're saying is it was built as a detention basin. It was left unmaintained. It turned into a wetland that could potentially be a vernal pool. Now you're going to go in and you're going to try to restore it back to a detention basin, but this is now a wetland.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Is the proposal to do maintenance on the basin to restore its functionality? Or maybe I'm just misinterpreting what the scope of work is. To when we think about cutting trees and doing other work in that local area, is the intent to restore the basin's function to its original state, or for just general maintenance that would not affect its wetland status?
So I think no matter what, it won't affect the wetland status because we've already deemed that detention basin to be a wetland resource area. And then I think Joe, through our next review with Lucas Environmental, will be looking a little bit more closely on the work and how that works.
Thank you.
I don't think that the intent here, and Mr. Tetreault, please correct me if I'm wrong, it isn't to restore these two basins to the original lines and grades that they were put in back in the 80s or 90s. It's to, I think, to clear out some vegetation during a time when these vernal pool species are not using the basins, so that they will continue to function as they have been functioning into the future. Now, they haven't been maintained in quite some time. However, they have still been offering stormwater detention to the site.
Okay, there you go. All right, that's helpful.
Yeah, so this isn't going back to like the 1988 condition when they were brand new. They're not going to scrape out all organic material or something like that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
That's correct, Mr. Smith. Where the intention is to cut the trees before things get even more out of hand with the vegetation in there. To, if there are easily removed by hand deposits of silt, especially at the outlets, to remove those, to see that pipes are not blocked, and that's really it. And again, there's a suspicion that there may be a blockage of somewhere in maybe even the middle of the pipe, of the outlet pipe from the more easterly basin, the one closer to Parkerville. But it's not, we'd be guessing at this point as to exactly what the contours were, as you say, in the mid 80s when these were installed. At this point, we couldn't do such a thing as to say, okay, here's where the grades really were and reshape the basin, because I don't know that anybody could say what the condition was, circa mid 80s.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the current maintenance isn't to dredge it, essentially. Any trees, James, they're just going to be, cut. The roots aren't going to be removed. So there's a little bit less alteration than I think, it was startling when you kind of think about reestablishing the basin. So it's a little less intensive.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. I do not see any other hands, Mark.
Okay.
Well,
so to that end, I think,
Mr. Chairman, I think we have to ask for a continuance to your next meeting.
Yes, that's correct. That continuance would be to October 5th.
Please.
So do I hear a motion to continue to October 5th?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Dulick,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Tomato.
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. See, next up, we're only an hour behind, so we're doing good. So, see, we have abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, 20 Sears Road. They've asked for continuance. Do they want us to open it?
No, just continue is fine.
Sorry, say again?
Just continuance is good.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to continue this abbreviated notice of resource area delineation of 20 Sears Road until next meeting? The second,
Second.
all in favor?
Dulick,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith. You're on mute, Ben, sorry.
Sorry about that. Yes.
And Pasmato.
Yes.
All right.
All right, on to new and continued business. The request for certificate of compliance of 4 Kidder Lane, DEP number 290-804.
Yes, and I actually have an added request for this one as well. In my research yesterday, I found that the initial order of conditions for the construction of the house didn't seem to be closed out either. They didn't submit a formal request, but since they are selling their home, I would ask the commission to issue both 804 and 290-630. The as-built is applicable for both. I kind of want it just in the wings in case the homeowner does need it and it comes up. It didn't come up in the title search, but just in case. Originally in our files, it had been checked off that there was a COC, but when I dug into it a little bit further, there hadn't. So I did review the newest COC that I have on here was for the construction of an in-ground pool. They actually moved part of the project of the shed further away from the buffer zone. So there were some minor deviations, but positive benefits.
Good find.
Yeah, I had a yes and a question mark, so I got a little nervous. Not further.
All right, so do I hear a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DP number 290-804?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Dulick,
Yes.
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes.
All right, and I would request if the commission is willing to do a COC for 290-630 for the original construction.
See, I wanted to impress you because I remember the number.
Don't sorry. I'm afraid of it.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All
All in
right,
favor?
Dulick,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Pasmato.
Yes. Okay, next is the certificate of compliance for 61 Breakneck Hill Road, stormwater permit FY 21-2.
Yep, so we I think back in March, we originally discussed this. I had some comments regarding the infiltration. The Coltech units were a little bit different, and I noticed there are some things that were labeled on the as-built that weren't in the field. So the engineer has reissued the as-built with the corrected information. The current homeowners were looking to put ground-mounted solar in the back. So I had put a hold on their application until the as-built was submitted. So we ensured we had got this closed out. I'm happy to report that my issues that I brought up had been rectified in the as-built, and I had no further concerns.
So all good.
All good.
Any discussion? No. All right, then do I hear a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 61 Breakneck Hill Road?
So
Stormwater
moved.
permit. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Dulick,
Aye.
Harrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Fasano.
Yes. And I guess I'll let you talk to the next one.
Yeah, there's not
38 Presidential Drive.
Yeah, there's not too much of an update. Still working on the plan. I won't get into the details, but the homeowners have had some health stuff. So they've been working as much as they can, removing the sand, and we are pinpointing down plants. And I've started to kind of create that barrier line with some of those suggested plantings.
Okay.
It's still progress.
All right. And then next is the restrictive covenant 84 Main Street discussion.
Yes, so I did hear back from the owner's representative yesterday. They had an internal discussion and they are agreeable to the conditions that the commission instated in terms of an updated as-built and a proposed plan with a PLS stamp that showed the 2-to-1 ratio. They said the surveyor is about a month out, so we may not have it for our 10-5 meeting, but it is in the works. So good progress on that.
Okay, review of standard conditions for OOC and SMPs. I have to be honest with you, I did not look at this.
I was gonna say, I don't know how much we want to go over this tonight. I didn't even get a lot of time. I got a lot of the surrounding towns special conditions and I put them in the Dropbox. If we wanted to hold off some more substantial discussion for the next meeting, I can pull out any conditions that are different from ours that are in other towns that might be worth it, and maybe have a little bit better of a comparison of how we stand in relation to others. But it did kind of spark some interest in some other surrounding towns that are looking to update their conditions as well. So it might be a nice time to do this as a whole.
All right. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look at it. It would be good to have sort of a comparison of differences.
Yeah.
With similar towns.
I can definitely do that. I know the biggest difference right off the bat is some have, 2 sets of conditions, one for kind of single family homes and one for more commercial-esque. I know we have just kind of one complete set that is kind of inclusive of everything. So that's something that I'll outline when I do the comparison as well.
Okay. Sorry, I just got pinged by work. I'm back. Reorganization of the commission.
So it's been
Discussion.
Yeah, we can, just as a yearly update, typically boards and committees after the reappointments of the year do a reorganization. Doesn't mean you have to change, just kind of to notify the town clerk who's chair, vice chair, etc. That's usually the only positions that we elect since we have paid staff that can do minutes and payables, etc. But if anyone wanted to take minutes on, I'm sure Laura would be happy to trade that off.
So any discussion?
That should be a formal motion. Can we just move to keep it as is? What's the Mark or Ben? Are you guys we don't want to do this anymore?
You can 100% just move to keep positions as is if that's what you would like.
It's up to you all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not broke.
We can't vote for Russ anymore, so yeah, I guess you guys will have to do. Right?
I agree. It's going well.
I do miss Russ though.
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's still around. He still calls me every week. Got my best note.
He brought a certain level of practical knowledge to the board, which is very
I was
helpful.
doing that yesterday, and I want to let you know it's not going to work.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I believe you because I was not doing that yesterday.
Yeah. I was up to my waist in mud, and I'll tell you why. So, any further discussion?
I'm fine with it the way it is. I wouldn't.
Do we have to take a vote or anything, Melissa?
I think if you guys are comfortable with it, then we will just continue as is.
All right.
Thanks,
Whenever you
Mark
want
and
to throw
Ben.
me out, just let me know.
I am not throwing you out, that's for sure. You can't get there, so tough luck.
All right, other business. It looks like we did pretty well with all this rain. Better than Leominster.
Leominster, I can report that the town of Southborough still exists, unlike other towns. We still had some issues on School Street. I didn't get any reports from the homeowners that live there. They usually come in or call. So I'm not sure. A lot of the rain the last week has happened, at night or on the weekends. So I'm not necessarily there. But other than that, as I look at my own notes, Lorenzo Drive, because they still don't have the top coat, they put sandbags around the catch basin so water actually goes in there. And Eversource, one of Russ's notes was Eversource removed the erosion controls along 85, but they actually had reached out to me late last week that they have one more aspect to do with their building on Corderville Road. So hopefully they'll finish that soon. They still don't have their MassDOT permit, so they haven't done the gas line work on Route 9 in Parkerville yet. But just the way that the rains have come in with the compost tubes like they are on the side of the guardrails, it's actually funneling the water alongside the road instead of allowing the sheet flow off. So just with all this rain, it was a little bit problematic, but no, impacts, just kind of what happens when you have a project like that. But they are still working, so that's why they're still down. But one thing that the new DPW director, Bill Cundiff, reached out to me right before this meeting. We've talked a couple times about the Willow Street washout, where the culvert collapsed. So in one of the most recent storms, they had some more sediment that came out and is now mounded at the end of the low end of the culvert. And he reached out today because he wanted to know if the commission would be acceptable if they could remove that mound, much like they had been doing when the culvert first collapsed, by the having a piece of equipment on the side of the roadway and just scooping it from the shoulder edge. They are still planning on doing the engineering, etc. But they really want to get this mound of sediment. It's less than 5 cubic yards or so, and it's just from the internal of the culvert. Some of it might be from washout upstream, but it's not from any impact from the road. But they want to make sure that water will still pass. So if the commission is comfortable, this is very much the same as what you had initially approved to get some of that vegetation and beaver dam out of the way. And so in my eyes, I saw it the same, but I wanted to run it past you before they went out and did it. I think they're just nervous with the impending storm. If more water comes, that culvert will continue to fail if the water cannot, accurately pass through. What?
Where are they putting the
sediment? Oh, they truck it offsite. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of an emergency situation. I mean, I think that goes a long way. It needs to be gotten out of there.
Yep.
When you say the impending storm, you mean Hurricane Lee?
It's the impending, if we get any rain.
Oh. Okay.
And just the way life has been going recently.
Yeah. 30 inches of rain in the summer. Good grief. So do we need a vote for this, or just?
Nope. As long as you guys are comfortable that it falls in line kind of with the previous approvals, then I will let him know, because they wanted to get it out there as soon as possible, just so it didn't cause an issue.
Yeah. I think it's in line with the right thing to do.
Yeah, and he would have been here tonight, but I told him I wouldn't torture him this early in his career in Southborough. So, but we'll probably see. He's been a great addition. I'm very, he reaches out to us a lot, especially with all the paving, ensuring that erosion controls are in the appropriate places. So, I have high hopes, and I hope that it will continue. So, hopefully we'll see him at some point, and I know he's looking to introduce himself as well. Right.
Okay, back to permits.
Yes.
Okay.
So for the farm dump, I had some conditions listed in the notes that I had sent. The only one that I added during our discussion was about that restoration plan. And I talked with the chair of stewardship before the meeting too, just to kind of further enforce that a lot of the things, in terms of the impacts to Breakneck Hill itself will be dealt with during the bid and contractor selection process. And when we have a pre-construction meeting on site, it's very clear, we've made it very clear within the bid that the stewardship committee is to be a part of the discussion, especially for the staging and parking. So the conditions were also in talking about that culvert by the parking area to ensure that that culvert is adequately protected, whether it's steel plates, etc. And a detail outlining how it will be done was to be submitted to the commission prior to construction. I also suggested that the selected contractor provide the commission with a construction timeline, kind of to Melinda's point of how long this is going to take. And then they shall work with the stewardship committee for proper protection of trails and pollination preservation gardens, including the construction fencing along access ways, which are detailed in the plans. Vegetation containing invasive species and material shall be removed from the site and disposed of properly. Contractors shall work with the agent and stewardship to finalize parking and staging locations. A detailed and/or plan shall be submitted to the commission, approved by the agent prior to construction. All work shall conform with the approved ACO. In the event that DEP requires additional or different scope of work for removal, the commission shall be notified immediately to determine appropriate steps. The site shall be stabilized at a minimum with a native cover crop that is approved by stewardship for stabilization until a restoration plan is approved or for winterization. Upon completion of work or prior to a restoration plan shall be submitted to the commission for approval for proper restoration of the area after a determination of the volume of soil and debris that has been removed. So that was a mouthful, but was there anything else or anything that you'd want to add or remove from those?
Did we cover the potential of them finding some hazardous material that they need to keep in the site until they find a way of removing it? To Ben's point.
I think that's covered by the ACO. There's a contingency plan that we put together for exactly that. That's part of the approved cleanup plan. So we could reference that.
So like they're not filling a dump truck full of asbestos, driving it down the road and letting it blow all over every place.
Yeah, that would be,
For example.
Yeah. Yes. So I think part of that's like state laws. But if you want me, I can reference the contingency and there's another specific plan that addresses exactly that TRC put together as part of the approved cleanup plan.
Okay.
Or I can reference the cleanup plan specifically.
Maybe that's a good idea to do that. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I can put a condition about just following rules and regulations, related to hazardous waste if encountered, kind of a general statement.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about leaky equipment sitting around.
Yeah, they have, that was one thing that I brought up with TRC. So in one of those plans that I mentioned, they are going to have absorbent mats to put under on the equipment that's going to be within the buffer zone and spill kits on hand.
All right. Okay.
All refueling to take place in the parking area.
Yeah. Or hand. Yeah. It's like the weird. You got to put together this big document with all the what ifs.
Well, I'm sure we didn't think of something too.
No doubt.
I'm sure there's something.
There's always something. Okay. Is there anything?
Okay. Do I hear a motion to issue the NOI?
So moved.
I mean, yeah, the not the NOI.
Other conditions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Look,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Basmato.
Yes.
All right. For 5 Quarterville, I didn't have anything specific to the conditions. Since
I think you skipped over the negative determination.
you issued that in one, you're good. That's just one
Oh,
vote.
we're all done? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you're good.
All right. 5 Quarterville.
5 Quarterville, I just had our standards. Everything in terms of invasive management was in the documents that were submitted, so that just gets listed as the plans of record. So unless you wanted to add something specific, but usually that is just what we need to follow by default.
Anybody have any additions? No. All right, so do I hear a motion to issue the order of conditions as stated by Melissa?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Nick,
Yes.
Barrington. Oh, sorry, Kevin. Upton,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Basmato.
Yes.
And then for 10 Overlook, I just had that drainage shall not be directed towards abutting properties and shall drain to the street.
And make it to the street.
If it can make it to the street. And I will also reiterate to the Board of Health agent about the comments tonight, the sump pump as well.
Yeah, it didn't sound like they were going to run a hose all the way across the septic system, so
Yeah.
that's good. All right, do I hear a motion to issue the order conditions for 10 Overlook?
So moved.
As stated, okay, as amended, actually.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Nick,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Upton. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you, Melinda.
Should I mute?
Oh,
Sorry. Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Basmato.
Yes.
Awesome. And then just very, very quickly, last night I did go to the Southborough Open Land Foundation meeting and gave a brief presentation about permitting. They had some basic questions and thoughts about what they would want to do on some of their properties. So some of it is just the ability to enter them to assess them for themselves, and others they're thinking of trails around wetlands. So kind of briefly went through what the different applications and what that looks like. So in the future, when they do want to do some work, I think at the very least, they're going to be coming to us with some invasive removal projects, most likely first. So that's just kind of as a factoid. And then otherwise, a reminder about the MACC Fall Conference. If anyone would like to go, please either reach out to myself or Laura or send in your registration and have the invoice sent to us. There's some great webinar for the fundamentals that are coming up. If anyone wants to get their fundamental certificate or take a refresher, they have discounts for that as well. And then I know we talked a lot about the farm dump, but the bid, we are just working on getting the contract that needs to be put into the bid. Town Council, I believe, is working on that. So we are going to get that ASAP because we need to start this work in November with our timeline from ACO. And then lastly, I received the management plan from Chestnut Hill Farm finally. So for the next meeting, they would like to come to us to have that management plan review. And they're also checking if their ecologist can come and do the summary of findings of their bobolink studies, which was kind of highly discussed at the last meeting. So we will probably have a tandem discussion regarding that. But very happy to report that I think we're closing in finally on getting that re-upped. And other than that, I think that's it.
Okay. Any upcoming absences that we have on the horizon by any members coming up?
No.
the reason why I mentioned it, I may have a work commitment on 10/5. I don't know yet, but something is brewing there. And then on November 16th, I think we have a meeting. And I can't make that one.
Okay.
If I did my weeks right.
I should be able to make both of those.
Okay. Yeah, the 5th is up in the air. It depends on a lot of things that's brewing, but yeah, I might have to be someplace. So, but the 16th, I'm definitely not going to be here.
Okay. And also one thing sorry, I forgot is we're still gonna have a party. So look out for that. So, make the mark come. So the only person I didn't hear back from is Jeff, but I will try and hunt him down.
So do we have to, can we take it over town boundaries so we don't violate open meeting law?
You could, Jim, the town clerk stated that we did not, as long as we're not doing like actual business, we do not have to post an agenda. It won't,
Okay.
So as long as we just plan on fully eating food, eating, cake and pastries, then we're good to go.
I don't want people taking pictures.
Everyone puts their cell phone in the box.
There you go. All right.
Cool.
All right. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Buick?
Yes.
Barrington? I didn't hear you, Kevin. Sorry.
Unmute again? No,
No.
yes.
Thank you. Upton?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Don't blow away. Weekend.